The storm hadn't been in the forecast. It had risen like something ancient stirred from slumber, sweeping across the sky in angry curls, thunder cracking loud enough to shake the windows of Eliana's car. Clouds rolled in like wolves chasing prey, and she hadn't seen another vehicle for miles. The mountain road twisted dangerously beneath her tires, slick with rain, and lined with the looming silhouettes of trees, pine, fir, oak shaped like sentinels. The forest here had always felt too alive, like it watched her. She should have turned back an hour ago, but something inside her had pulled her forward, not just her aunt's cryptic warning. It's waking up again. If the bond finds you first, run. Not just the weight of grief pressing behind her ribs after losing the last family she had. It was something else, a sensation in her blood. Like a whisper she couldn't shake. Like a tether tugging gently but insistently toward Hollow's edge. She hadn't been back since she was 17, since he left, since everything familiar cracked apart. Her knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. Wipers slapped frantically. Headlights struggled against the wall of falling rain. She came around the bend and then she saw him, a figure, standing motionless in the road. At first, she thought it was a man. Broad shoulders, bare chest, drenched in rain, unmoving. Then he lifted his head, and she saw his eyes, not brown, not green, not any human shade at all. Amber, luminescent, wolf's eyes. Her breath caught. She slammed the brakes, but it was too late. The tires lost traction. The world spun sideways. Her chest hit the seatbelt. Metal screamed against bark. Then darkness. She woke to silence. Not peace, not safety, just the stillness that follows catastrophe. The windshield was fractured. Her forehead ached. Blood trickled from her scalp into her brow. Her breath came in shallow, painful gasps. The car was tilted sideways in a ditch. Cold water pooled near her feet. She reached for the door. Stuck. She turned her head and froze. He stood there, just outside the shattered window, soaked to the bone, shirtless, mud clinging to the curve of his collarbone. His black hair was longer now, plastered to his forehead, but she'd know that face anywhere. "'Cause, don't move," he said. His voice was deeper now, roughened by time, but it still hit her like a punch to the chest. Her pulse spiked. How her throat closed. He grabbed the door and ripped it open. Not just opened, ripped. Metal groaned. Hinges popped. He pulled her free like she weighed nothing, cradling her against his chest with unnatural ease. She scrambled back the moment her feet hit the ground. Rain soaked through her jacket in seconds. He let her go without resistance, watching with eyes that glowed faintly in the dark. Eliana stared at him, chest heaving. "You're not real," she said. "You can't be real." He tilted his head. Wolf-like, "You shouldn't have come back. You were gone. Everyone said you were dead." "I was." She flinched. "That's not funny." "No," he said, voice quieter. "It's not." The storm growled overhead. She took a shaky step toward him. "You were in the road. Why didn't you move? I needed to stop you before. Something else did." "Something else?" That's when she heard it. A low growl. Not far. Not human. She turned and the air seemed to go still. A massive creature emerged from the tree line, larger than a bear. Too fast. Too silent. Its eyes glowed red. Its fur was matted in black, crawling with wet leaves. Its teeth bared. Not animal. Not man. Something in between. Eliana's breath caught in her lungs. The thing snarled. Cuz moved in a blur. His body rippled, his muscles snapping, bones shifting. His skin shimmered, then gave way to thick fur. In seconds, he was something else. Not like the other monster controlled. Beautiful. Dangerous in the way fire is dangerous, meant to consume, but captivating. He slammed into the other beast mid-charge, the impact thundering through the clearing. They tumbled through the trees. Snarls. Flesh tearing. Bones cracking. Eliana stumbled backward. No, 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 she ran. Branches tore at her jacket. Her shoes slipped in the mud. Every breath burned, but she kept moving. Through the trees. Away. From the car. Away from the monsters. Except, she knew one of them. Kaz, who had once shared his apple slices with her when her mother forgot to pack lunch. Kaz, who had kissed her once under the bleachers at 17 and then vanished the next day. Kaz, who had just become something inhuman in front of her and still pulled her from the wreck like she mattered. The trees thinned. She stumbled into a clearing she didn't recognize, and stopped. The hollow. Her aunt had spoken about it, an ancient place older than Hollow's Edge itself. She had said it was alive in ways that science would never understand, and it pulls beneath her now like a heartbeat under the soil. Eliana sank to her knees, sobbing, not because she was afraid, but because something inside her recognized this place, and it recognized her, the bond, not just between fated mates but between her, this land, and the boy the wolf who had once held her hand. Somewhere behind her, a howl split the sky, not wounded, victorious. She turned toward the sound, heart pounding, and through the mist and trees Cuz emerged again, his clothes torn. Blood streaked across his temple, but his eyes were still gold, still burning, still looking straight at her. Eliana, he said. She didn't run, she stood, and whispered, I loved you before the bond. He froze. She stepped closer. Do you? Do you only love me because of it? The silence between them held centuries, then softly, almost broken, I loved you before I knew what I was. The forest felt different in daylight. Eliana had spent the night curled in the old ranger's hut near the edge of the hollow, wrapped in a half-rotted wool blanket, her back to the wall and a branch clutched like a weapon. She hadn't slept. Not really. She'd listened to the wind, to the creaks of wood, to the forest whispering things she couldn't quite understand. And now, in the morning light, it all looked to calm as if the night before monsters, shifting bodies, glowing eyes had been a fever dream. But the soreness in her limbs was real. The scratches on her arms, the ache in her heart, and the memory of Kaz's voice. I loved you before I knew what I was. She didn't know what to do with that, what to do with him. Kaz had vanished into the trees after saving her. He hadn't said goodbye, hadn't even looked back, just like the last time. Eliana moved slowly through the woods, following the thin path her aunt had once used to gather herbs. It was still mostly overgrown, but her boots found it by instinct. The hollow pulls beneath her feet again, not violent, not loud, just present, like it was watching. The birds were quiet, the air felt too still, and then she heard it. Footsteps, not fast, not light, heavy, deliberate. Her heart thudded. She turned and there he was, Kaz, not in his wolf form this time, but still dangerous in a way she couldn't explain. Like he wasn't meant to be seen in daylight, like he belonged to something older. He wore a tattered gray t-shirt and jeans, soaked to the knees from the underbrush. Mud on his boots. His dark hair fell messily over his brow. His eyes, those glowing amber eyes, were locked on her. She didn't speak, neither did he. Not at first. Then, finally, you didn't leave, you ran. He looked away. I thought it would be easier. For who? A pause. Then softly, for you. She folded her arms. You think vanishing again is easier than giving me answers? I don't have good ones. I'm not asking for good, she said. I'm asking for honest. He looked at her then and it hit her how tired he looked. Not physically, but emotionally. Like the weight of what he was carried more than claws and fangs. You want the truth? He said. She nodded. I'm not supposed to see you, he said. Not now. Not like this. Because of the bond? He flinched slightly at the word. No. Because you were supposed to be safe. Eliana's voice was sharper than she intended. Yeah, well, I got a letter from a dead woman telling me to run. That's not usually a sign of safety. He inhaled, slow and ragged. Your aunt knew about all of it. She said something was waking up, that the bond might find me first. She was right. He stepped closer, and Eliana didn't move. She couldn't, because the closer he came, the more her skin felt electric, like her soul was leaning forward, drawn to him, even as her mind screamed caution. You felt it, didn't you? He asked, voice low. She nodded once. I felt it the moment I saw you again, he whispered, stronger than before, hungrier. Her heart pounded. Then what is it, Kaz? What are we? He hesitated, like the words themselves were painful, fated. The word tasted like fire and ice in her mouth. No, she said. That's too easy. It's not easy, he growled. It's hell. They stared at each other, the wind picking up around them. Somewhere in the trees, a raven called. Eliana's voice softened. Tell me what happened to you after you left. After that night, he turned away, staring into the trees. I shifted for the first time, he said. Right after I kissed you. Right after his voice caught. I didn't know it would happen. I didn't know it would choose. That moment. Choose? He looked at her, something broken in his eyes. The storm hadn't been in the forecast. It had risen like something ancient stirred from slumber, sweeping across the sky in angry curls. thunder cracking loud enough to shake the windows of Eliana's car. Clouds rolled in like wolves chasing prey, and she hadn't seen another vehicle for miles. The mountain road twisted dangerously beneath her tires, slick with rain, and lined with the looming silhouettes of trees, pine, fir, oak shaped like sentinels. The forest here had always felt too alive, like it watched her. She should have turned back an hour ago, but something inside her had pulled her forward, not just her aunt's cryptic warning. It's waking up again. If the bond finds you first, run. Not just the weight of grief pressing behind her ribs after losing the last family she had. It was something else, a sensation in her blood. Like a whisper she couldn't shake. Like a tether tugging gently but insistently toward Hollow's edge. She hadn't been back since she was 17, since he left, since everything familiar cracked apart. Her knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. Wipers slapped frantically. Headlights struggled against the wall of falling rain. She came around the bend and then she saw him, a figure, standing motionless in the road. At first, she thought it was a man. Broad shoulders, bare chest, drenched in rain, unmoving. Then he lifted his head, and she saw his eyes, not brown, not green, not any human shade at all. Amber, luminescent, wolf's eyes. Her breath caught. She slammed the brakes, but it was too late. The tires lost traction. The world spun sideways. Her chest hit the seatbelt. Metal screamed against bark. Then darkness. She woke to silence. Not peace, not safety, just the stillness that follows catastrophe. The windshield was fractured. Her forehead ached. Blood trickled from her scalp into her brow. Her breath came in shallow, painful gasps. The car was tilted sideways in a ditch. Cold water pooled near her feet. She reached for the door. Stuck. She turned her head and froze. He stood there, just outside the shattered window, soaked to the bone, shirtless, mud clinging to the curve of his collarbone. His black hair was longer now, plastered to his forehead, but she'd know that face anywhere. "'Cause, don't move," he said. His voice was deeper now, roughened by time, but it still hit her like a punch to the chest. Her pulse spiked. How her throat closed. He grabbed the door and ripped it open. Not just opened, ripped. Metal groaned. Hinges popped. He pulled her free like she weighed nothing, cradling her against his chest with unnatural ease. She scrambled back the moment her feet hit the ground. Rain soaked through her jacket in seconds. He let her go without resistance, watching with eyes that glowed faintly in the dark. Eliana stared at him, chest heaving. "You're not real," she said. "You can't be real." He tilted his head. Wolf-like, "You shouldn't have come back. You were gone. Everyone said you were dead." "I was." She flinched. "That's not funny." "No," he said, voice quieter. "It's not." The storm growled overhead. She took a shaky step toward him. "You were in the road. Why didn't you move? I needed to stop you before. Something else did." "Something else?" That's when she heard it. A low growl. Not far. Not human. She turned and the air seemed to go still. A massive creature emerged from the tree line, larger than a bear. Too fast. Too silent. Its eyes glowed red. Its fur was matted and black, crawling with wet leaves. Its teeth bared. Not animal. Not man. Something in between. Eliana's breath caught in her lungs. The thing snarled. Cuz moved in a blur. His body rippled, his muscles snapping, bones shifting. His skin shimmered, then gave way to thick fur. In seconds, he was something else. Not like the other monster controlled. Beautiful. Dangerous in the way fire is dangerous, meant to consume, but captivating. He slammed into the other beast mid-charge, the impact thundering through the clearing. They tumbled through the trees. Snarls. Flesh tearing. Bones cracking. Eliana stumbled backward. No, 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 she ran. Branches tore at her jacket. Her shoes slipped in the mud. Every breath burned, but she kept moving. Through the trees. Away. From the car. Away from the monsters. Except she knew one of them. Kaz, who had once shared his apple slices with her when her mother forgot to pack lunch. Kaz, who had kissed her once under the bleachers at 17 and then vanished the next day. Kaz, who had just become something inhuman in front of her and still pulled her from the wreck like she mattered. The trees thinned. She stumbled into a clearing she didn't recognize, and stopped. The hollow. Her aunt had spoken about it, an ancient place older than Hollow's Edge itself. She had said it was alive, in ways that science would never understand, and it pulls beneath her now like a heartbeat under the soil. Eliana sank to her knees, sobbing. not because she was afraid, but because something inside her recognized this place, and it recognized her, the bond, not just between fated mates but between her, this land, and the boy the wolf who had once held her hand. Somewhere behind her, a howl split the sky, not wounded, victorious. She turned toward the sound, heart pounding, and through the mist and trees Cuz emerged again, his clothes torn. Blood streaked across his temple, but his eyes were still gold, still burning, still looking straight at her. Eliana, he said. She didn't run, she stood, and whispered, I loved you before the bond. He froze. She stepped closer. Do you? Do you only love me because of it? The silence between them held centuries, then softly, almost broken. I loved you before I knew what I was. The forest felt different in daylight. Eliana had spent the night curled in the old ranger's hut near the edge of the hollow, wrapped in a half-rotted wool blanket, her back to the wall and a branch clutched like a weapon. She hadn't slept. Not really. She'd listened to the wind, to the creaks of wood, to the forest whispering things she couldn't quite understand. And now, in the morning light, it all looked as if the night before monsters, shifting bodies, glowing eyes had been a fever dream. But the soreness in her limbs was real. The scratches on her arms, the ache in her heart, and the memory of Kaz's voice. I loved you before I knew what I was. She didn't know what to do with that, what to do with him. Kaz had vanished into the trees after saving her. He hadn't said goodbye, hadn't even looked back, just like the last time. Eliana moved slowly through the woods, following the thin path her aunt had once used to gather herbs. It was still mostly overgrown, but her boots found it by instinct. The hollow pulls beneath her feet again, not violent, not loud, just present, like it was watching. The birds were quiet, the air felt too still, and then she heard it. Footsteps, not fast, not light, heavy, deliberate. Her heart thudded. She turned and there he was, Kaz, not in his wolf form this time, but still dangerous in a way she couldn't explain. Like he wasn't meant to be seen in daylight, like he belonged to something older. He wore a tattered gray t-shirt and jeans, soaked to the knees from the underbrush. Mud on his boots. His dark hair fell messily over his brow. His eyes, those glowing amber eyes, were locked on her. She didn't speak, neither did he. Not at first. Then, finally, you didn't leave, you ran. He looked away. I thought it would be easier. For who? A pause. Then softly, for you. She folded her arms. You think vanishing again is easier than giving me answers? I don't have good ones. I'm not asking for good, she said. I'm asking for honest. He looked at her then and it hit her how tired he looked. Not physically, but emotionally. Like the weight of what he was carried more than claws and fangs. You want the truth? He said. She nodded. I'm not supposed to see you, he said. Not now. Not like this. Because of the bond? He flinched slightly at the word. No, because you were supposed to be safe. Eliana's voice was sharper than she intended. Yeah, well, I got a letter from a dead woman telling me to run. That's not usually a sign of safety. He inhaled, slow and ragged. Your aunt knew about all of it. She said something was waking up, that the bond might find me first. She was right. He stepped closer, and Eliana didn't move. She couldn't, because the closer he came, the more her skin felt electric, like her soul was leaning forward, drawn to him, even as her mind screamed caution. You felt it, didn't you? He asked, voice low. She nodded once. I felt it the moment I saw you again, he whispered, stronger than before, hungrier. Her heart pounded. Then what is it, Kaz? What are we? He hesitated, like the words themselves were painful, fated. The word tasted like fire and ice in her mouth. No, she said. That's too easy. It's not easy, he growled. It's hell. They stared at each other, the wind picking up around them. Somewhere in the trees, a raven called. Eliana's voice softened. Tell me what happened to you after you left. After that night, he turned away, staring into the trees. I shifted for the first time, he said. Right after I kissed you. Right after his voice caught. I didn't know it would happen. I didn't know it would choose. That moment. Choose? He looked at her, something broken in his eyes. She could run. Pretend none of this was real. Pretend her blood didn't ache when Kuz looked at her. Pretend she wasn't already connected to something far bigger than she understood. Or, she could step forward, right into the fire, right into the truth. The cabin stood like a secret buried in time, half swallowed by the wild, its cedar bones wrapped in ivy and fog. A crow perched on the crooked chimney, watching Eliana as if it recognized her, as if it had been waiting. Cuz said nothing as he pushed the door open. She hesitated, eyes sweeping the dense woods behind them. Every rustle made her flinch. A lifetime of safety couldn't erase the memory of last night, the howls, the shifting, the creature that had nearly killed her. Only Kaz's wolf had stood between her and death. And that terrified her even more. Not because he had saved her, but because part of her had felt safe in his arms. That was the problem. Come inside, he said, not looking back. His voice was quiet, steady, but there was something beneath it, like he was bracing for something he didn't want to say. She stepped inside slowly. It was dim and quiet. The scent of smoke clung to the walls along with dried herbs strung above the hearth and a stack of rough-woven blankets. A kettle sat on a cast-iron stove, still warm. The place wasn't just lived in, it was survived in. There were no clocks, no photos, no mirrors. Just wood, fire, and silence. Eliana crossed her arms, suddenly unsure where to stand. This where you go when you're hiding? She asked softly. Kuz gave a small huff, somewhere between a laugh and a sigh. This is where I go when I need to remember who I am. And who's that exactly? She said. The boy who vanished after our first kiss, or the wolf who tore apart a monster in the woods. He glanced at her, eyes unreadable. I'm trying to figure that out. She lowered her gaze. Well, I'd appreciate an answer before one of those sides decides to kill me. Silence. Then Kuz moved to the hearth, squatted down, and tossed a few logs into the fire. Sparks leapt into the chimney. The crackling heat was oddly comforting. Why did you come back, El? He asked, voice low. She blinked. Because my aunt died. That's not all. She didn't respond. He stood and faced her. His eyes were less gold now, more human, but still, not quite. You felt it, didn't you? Before you got here. In your dreams, in your bones. She nodded slowly. Something pulling you. I thought it was grief. He shook his head. The bond doesn't wait for grief. It feeds on it. It finds cracks. And it digs in. She flinched. That's a horrible thing to say. I don't mean it to be cruel, he said. I mean it to be true. This thing between us, it isn't gentle. It wasn't made for soft landings. She stepped closer to the fire, rubbing her arms against the chill. You think I don't know that? She said. You think I haven't felt it tearing at me since you left? I spent years pretending that kiss meant nothing, that it was just young love, that you disappearing was just you being scared. I was. So was I, she snapped. But I didn't get to run. I stayed. I lost people. I buried family. I carried the silence you left behind like a wound. Kuz looked away, his jaw clenched. I know, he said. And I'm sorry. She turned to face him fully. Then start proving it. Start talking. A pause. Then he moved to a small cabinet near the back wall. He opened it carefully and retrieved something wrapped in dark fabric. When he unwrapped it, Eliana's breath hitched. A small, leather-bound book. Old, worn, weathered like it had survived fire and flood. My mother's journal, Kuz said. Before she broke the bond. Eliana's fingers tingled. I thought she died. She did. But not from age. Not from time. She chose to reject my father. The bond shattered her mind. She didn't survive it. She chose? Eliana whispered. I thought fated mates couldn't reject each other. Some do, he said. But it comes at a cost. Her fingers hovered near the book. Why are you giving this to me? He exhaled. Because if you're going to stay in this world, my world, you need to understand the rules. She took the book in both hands. The leather was warm, almost pulsing. A heartbeat. Will it tell me how to stop this? She asked quietly. No, he said. Nothing can stop the bond. Not now. But it might help you understand what you're becoming. Her head snapped up. Becoming? He didn't answer. But the silence said enough. She swallowed hard. I'm not like you, Kaz. I don't have claws. Or fangs. I don't hear voices in the woods or feel the moon in my blood. You don't yet, he said. A gust of wind shook the windows. Somewhere outside, a distant howl pierced the air. Eliana tensed. Kuz crossed the room and stood beside her. You're changing, El. You may not see it, but I can smell it. Her cheeks flushed. That's creepy. He smiled faintly. That's instinct. She opened the book slowly. Inside were lines of neat handwriting, cursive, elegant, full of strange symbols and words written in a language she didn't understand. What is this? Blood writ, moon speak, and some of it, just memories. She ran her finger over a phrase inked in red. The bond does not ask, it claims, and once claimed, it transforms. Eliana shut the book gently. She looked up at him. I don't want to lose who I am. You won't, he said. Not if you choose to fight for it. Her throat tightened. Will you fight with me? Cuz didn't move. Then slowly, he reached out and placed a hand over hers. I already am. His palm was rough, calloused, warm. She didn't pull away. Why now? She whispered. Why are you staying now? When you left before? Because this time, he said, I know what I'd lose if I left again. She met his eyes. And what's that? You, he said. The girl who threw apples at me. The woman who still looks at me like I'm not a monster. You're not, she said. Maybe not yet, he whispered. But something's coming, yell. And I don't know if I can stop it alone. She tightened her grip on his hand. Then it's a good thing you're not alone anymore. And in that moment, something inside both of them shifted. Not a wolf, not magic, but trust. Hard-earned, fragile, real. The rain came without warning. One moment the forest was still, wrapped in a hush so deep Eliana could hear her own breath. The next, the clouds cracked open with a roar, and cold water pelted the trees like glass shattering from the sky. Eliana gasped as a gust of wind shoved against her shoulders. The book Kaz's mother's journal was clutched tightly to her chest beneath her jacket, wrapped in an old oilskin cloth. She ducked low under a large pine, heart hammering. Kaz had gone to scout the perimeter of the hollow. Just 20 minutes, he'd said, voice steady, as if the storm wasn't already licking at the edges of the woods. Stay near the cabin. That had been almost an hour ago, and now she was alone. Again, she shifted her weight, eyes scanning the trees. The rain had dulled the forest's usual chorus. No birds, no rustling squirrels, just the eerie sound of water soaking the ground and wind snarling through the branches. Then a howl broke through the silence. It wasn't like Kaz's. This one was deeper, colder, full of something that made Eliana's blood chill in her veins. Another shifter, or something worse. She stood quickly and ran, feet slipping on mud-slick roots as she raced back toward the cabin. Lightning cracked overhead, splitting a tree in the distance. The boom of thunder that followed was enough to make her flinch. She stumbled into the clearing, gasping, and froze. The door to the cabin was open, wide. Kaz never left it open. Her breath caught. She crouched low, creeping to the side window. The room inside was dark, lit only by the flickering fireplace. Nothing looked overturned, but something felt wrong. Off, Eliana edged toward the door, her heart pounding in her ears. Then a voice, low, gravelly, and unfamiliar, spoke from within. She's here. I can smell her. Eliana went cold. Another voice, smoother but more cruel. You think she's his? The bond shouldn't have taken root without a right. She reeks of him. A pause, then laughter, dark, mocking. Poor pup doesn't even know what she is. Eliana stepped back, panic clawing at her throat. There were two of them, maybe more, rogues, just like Kaz had warned her. She crept around the side of the cabin, stepping carefully, avoiding every branch and leaf. Her boots squelched softly in the mud. She didn't have time to think. She just needed to find a hand clamped over her mouth. She screamed, muffled, but the voice behind her hissed, "Shh, yell, it's me." She twisted, and there he was, Kaz, his eyes glowing amber, his hair soaked to the roots, rain streaming down his face. Are you okay? He whispered urgently. She nodded, trembling. They're inside, she whispered back. They know about me. He cursed under his breath. They shouldn't be this far north. Who are they? Rogues, exiled wolves who've turned on their packs. Her voice shook. What do they want? You, he said, or the power in your blood? She blinked. I don't have any power, you do, he said. Even if it hasn't awakened yet. She clutched his jacket. What do we do? I'll draw them out. You run into the hollow. I'm not leaving you. His hand cupped her cheek, urgent, trembling. I can't protect you and fight them both. If anything happens to you, yell. Her heart slammed into her ribs. I'm not leaving, she said again. And then the cabin door slammed open. A figure stepped out, soaked, tall, bare-chested despite the cold, his eyes glowing an eerie, unnatural red. Well, the rogue said, voice like gravel. The pup brought his toy out to play. Kaz stepped forward. She's not yours, not yet, the rogue sneered. But that bond of yours, it's still forming, still vulnerable, easy to sever, or steal. He snarled and leapt. Kaz shifted mid-air, bones cracking, fur erupting from skin, his roar echoing through the woods. Eliana backed away, heart in her throat. the rogue shifted to sloppier, more violent, his form monstrous. Not all shifters turned the same. And this one had clearly lost whatever shred of humanity he once had. The two wolves collided with a thunderous crash, claws slashing, teeth snapping. Eliana turned and ran, not away from the fight but toward the hollow's edge. She didn't know why. Instinct, maybe. Or the pull in her blood, ancient and insistent, dragging her deeper into the forest. Branches clawed at her arms. Her breath came in ragged gasps. The journal pounded against her ribs. She didn't look back. Not until a second shape broke through the trees ahead. Another rogue, tall, weary, with two wide eyes and a cruel grin that stretched unnaturally. He stepped into her path. Well, aren't you a pretty little trespasser? He purred. Eliana stumbled backward. Stay away from me. He sniffed the air. You're bleeding. She glanced at her arm. A gash from a branch she hadn't even felt. Blood dripped onto the soil. He grinned. Wider. Even your scent screams his. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the only thing she had, her aunt's silver necklace. It wasn't a weapon, but it was hers, and in that moment, it felt like an anchor. Back off, she said. The rogue laughed. Or what? You'll blind me with your jewelry? No, came a voice behind him, but I will rip out your throat. Cuz launched from the trees, landing on the rogue's back with a sickening crunch. They went down in a whirl of fur and snarls. Eliana didn't hesitate. She grabbed a thick branch from the ground and ran toward the struggle. The rogue was bigger, stronger, but Cuz was faster. He pinned the rogue's shoulders, jaws inches from his throat, and then he paused, his eyes golden burning locked on hers. He didn't finish the kill, Eliana, he growled. Go. But she couldn't leave him. Not now. Not again. She raised the branch and with everything she had, slammed it into the rogue's skull. The creature roared, and then went still. Cuz leapt off him, shifting back mid-air. Blood streamed from a gash down his side. He winced but stayed on his feet. Eliana dropped the branch and stared at him, chest heaving. You didn't kill him. I couldn't, he said hoarsely. Not while you were watching. She blinked. What? If I let that side of me win, the bond gets darker. It roots in violence, in rage. He looked at her, bleeding and breathless. I want ours to be different. She stepped closer, cupped his cheek, just like he'd done for her earlier, then whispered. So do I. Thunder rumbled again, but it sounded distant now, like the storm was passing, and beneath the canopy, surrounded by wreckage, they stood together, scarred, shaken, but not broken, not yet. The cabin felt different after the attack. The fire still crackled. The walls still held their heavy scent of smoke and cedar, but the silence between Eliana and Cuz had shifted into something heavier. The rogues were gone, either dead or fled, but the danger hadn't passed. It had only evolved. Eliana sat curled on the edge of the hearth, her wet clothes replaced by a soft, oversized flannel shirt from Cuz's duffel. The heat from the flames seeped slowly into her bones, but it couldn't reach the chill curled deep in her chest. Across the room, Cuz paced like a caged animal. Every few minutes, he paused to check the window, ears sharpening to sounds only he could hear. They were tracking me, she said quietly. He stopped. What? She looked up, eyes tired but clear. Those rogues, they came here because of me, didn't they? He exhaled slowly, like the weight of that truth had been sitting just beneath his ribs. Yes, and the one in the cabin said. The bond hadn't fully formed, that it could be stolen. Cuz nodded. A bond like ours, if incomplete, can be manipulated. In rare cases, severed, or twisted. Twisted? She echoed. He turned toward her, his expression unreadable, made into something dark, something corrupt, a cursed tether. That's why I needed to keep you away. She rose to her feet. You think I can't handle the truth? You think I'm too fragile? No, he stepped forward. I think you're too important. Her breath caught. You still don't understand what you are, he said. She stiffened. I'm a girl who lost her family. A girl who came back to a haunted forest and found the boy who broke her heart. That's all. He stared at her for a long time. Then quietly he said, no, you're the last of a bloodline. The last living descendant of a line once known as Moonbinders. She blinked. What? He stepped closer. Your aunt wasn't just a healer. She was the last practicing moon priestess. She knew the hollow better than anyone, and she protected it not just from outsiders, but from us. Eliana backed up, heart pounding. That's not possible. Cuz nodded toward the small leather book resting beside the hearth, his mother's journal. Page 73, he said, hands trembling. Eliana flipped through the journal. page after page of spells, memories, scattered thoughts, until she found the entry, a single paragraph, written in sharp, determined ink. The child of both bloods, human and divine, will awaken under fire and fang. She will walk between two worlds, and her choice will either heal the hollow or doom it. Eliana's voice cracked. You think that's me? I know it is. How? He moved slowly, cautiously, like approaching a wounded animal. Because your scent changed. The night you stepped back into these woods. Because the bond didn't just respond to me, it answered something older, something buried. He stopped inches from her. And because when I nearly lost you in the forest, the hollow cried out. Eliana shook her head. No, this is crazy. I'm not magical. I can't shift. I don't even believe in fate. You don't have to, he said gently, but it believes in you. She turned away, pacing toward the small window. Rain had stopped. The forest steamed in the fading light, mist rising like spirits from the earth. I don't want this, she whispered. I know. I didn't ask for this. No one ever does. Her fingers dug into the windowsill. So what happens now? I become some kind of priestess? I fight off rogue wolves and save a world I never even knew existed? Not alone, he said. She turned to face him again. What else aren't you telling me, cuz? He didn't flinch. The bond between us, it's not just fate, he said. It's a beacon, a signal. If the elders learn what you are, they won't let you live. They'll see you as a threat to the balance. Because of my bloodline? Because of what you could become? She walked toward him, slow but sure. And what's that? He stared at her, into her. The hollow's next alpha. Eliana stopped breathing. What? He stepped even closer, his voice barely more than a whisper. There hasn't been a human-born alpha in centuries. It's unheard of. But if the bond with a true alpha forms naturally, and if that human holds the hollow's blood in her veins, it can happen. She laughed, shaky and bitter. I'm not even a werewolf. You wouldn't need to be. Her body trembled. Not from fear but from the enormity of it all. Her aunt's secrets, the rogue attack, the bond burning between her and caused like a second heartbeat. I'm not ready for this, she said. I know. I can't be what they need. I don't care about them, he said. I care about you. The raw honesty in his voice made her chest tighten. What if I mess it up? She whispered. What if I'm not strong enough? He reached out and took her hand, pressed it over his heart. You already are, he said. Her throat tightened, and, for the first time, she didn't feel like a girl torn between two lives. She felt like something new, something forming, whole. Then softly, cuz added, there's one more thing you need to know. Eliana blinked. More? He nodded, pulling a small stone pendant from around his neck. He unclasped it and placed it in her palm. It glowed faintly, warm and humming. My mother's soul stone, he said. Worn by the bonded. If anything happens to me, it will protect you. Why would something happen to you? He didn't answer, but the look in his eyes told her everything. This wasn't over. This was the beginning of a war, of a legacy, of a bond that could either save them or destroy everything. Eliana didn't sleep. She lay curled beneath a heavy wool blanket on the narrow cot near the fireplace, the soul stone clutched tight in her hand. It pulsed faintly with warmth, almost in rhythm with her heartbeat, as if whispering that it was watching, guarding, but no stone could guard her from the storm inside her. She stared at the ceiling, tracing knots in the dark wood above her, listening to the quiet pacing of Kaz outside the cabin. Every few minutes, the boards creaked beneath his boots, and she'd hear him pause near the window checking, watching, protecting her, as always. But trust didn't come easily when your life had been rewritten overnight. She rose before the sun, slipping silently into her boots and pulling on her jacket. The cabin door groaned softly as she opened it. Stepping into the dawn, the forest was still, bathed in pale morning mist. The smell of wet earth, pine, and something faintly electric lingered in the air. Her breath fogged in front of her. Cuz was there leaning against a tree near the clearing's edge, shirtless despite the cold, his shoulders tense, his eyes distant. You didn't sleep, she said. He didn't turn around. Didn't need to. You're lying. Silence stretched between them. She took a step closer. You've been avoiding me since you told me about the bloodline. He exhaled slowly. I didn't mean to drop it all on you at once. You didn't, she said. You waited until I had no choice but to listen. That made him turn. His eyes locked onto hers, amber and stormy. Because you wouldn't have listened before. You were still fighting it, still fighting me. And maybe I had a reason, she said. voice sharper than she meant. Maybe I still do. Something flickered in his gaze, hurt, maybe, or something darker, but he nodded. You want out, he said. I get it. She opened her mouth to deny it, and couldn't, because part of her did want out. Not from him but from the weight, the pressure, the prophecy she hadn't asked for. I don't know what I want, she whispered. That's okay, he said. I do. She stared at him, throat tightening. You'd die for me, she said. Yes, and that's the problem. He blinked. What? You don't get to decide how this ends, cuz, she said, stepping forward now, voice trembling. You don't get to carry the whole burden and leave me with the ashes. That's not love. That's not trust. His jaw tensed, but he didn't speak. She reached for the soul stone around her neck. You gave me this like it was some gift. Like it was a promise. But it's not. It's a shield in case you do something stupid. His eyes narrowed. You think I don't know what's at stake? I think you've already made a decision you haven't told me about. He looked away, silent, and that told her everything. You're going to sacrifice yourself, she said flatly. Still, he said nothing. Her voice broke. Why? Because you're more important, he said finally, looking at her with eyes that shattered her heart. Because if I have to choose between saving you or saving me, it's not even a question. That's not your choice to make. Yes, it is, he snapped. Because I've lived this life, Yell. I know what I am. I've seen what I'll become if this bond doesn't hold. And if the pack finds out who you are, what you are, they'll tear you apart to control it. She stepped back as if struck. He regretted the words instantly, but it was too late. She turned away, tears hot and unwelcome in her eyes. I thought we were in this together, she said. I thought after everything you saw me, not just the prophecy, not the blood, me. I do. Then stop planning how to die for me, she whispered, and start learning how to live with me. The silence that followed was deafening. Then she pulled the soul stone from her neck and placed it in his palm. I don't want this if it means losing you, she said. Yell no, she cut in. This bond may be fate, but I won't let it become a prison. If you're willing to die for me, then you have to be willing to trust me too. No more secrets. No more shielding. We do this together. The wind picked up, rustling through the trees like a whispered warning. Cuz stared at the soul stone in his hand, then slowly closed his fingers around it. I made a deal, he said quietly. She froze. What kind of deal? His voice was barely audible. With the elder pack, before you arrived, to protect you if the rogues attacked. She stared at him, ice spreading through her chest. And what did you give them? He looked up, eyes filled with guilt. Me. Eliana stepped back, breath punched from her lungs. They're coming for you, she said, voice cracking. Tomorrow night, he confirmed. Full moon. They want proof of loyalty. My blood, in exchange for your freedom. You lied to me. I kept you safe. She shook her head. No, you betrayed me. You didn't even give me a choice. He stepped forward. I had to choose. You chose without me. Again. Her heart felt like it was tearing in two. I trusted you, cuz, she said, voice hollow. I finally let you back in. And you've already planned how to disappear. His face twisted in anguish. I'm sorry. She stared at him for a long moment, then turned and walked back into the forest. Without another word, he didn't follow, and for the first time since they'd been reunited, he didn't stop her. The rain had passed, but the sky remained bruised and restless. Eliana wandered deep into the forest, away from the cabin, away from Kaz. Her boots pressed through puddles of ash and moss, the wind whispering in her ears like a warning she didn't yet understand. The anger that had propelled her this far had begun to dim, replaced by something worse, emptiness. She wasn't even sure what she was running from anymore. Kaz's betrayal, her own bloodline, the terrifying possibility of destiny. She just knew she needed space, air, silence. She climbed a slope of slick earth, her hands grasping at roots and low-hanging branches, and crested a ridge that overlooked the hollow's eastern ravine. A broken old swing hung from a warped tree limb, its rope frayed by age and time. Her childhood had ended here, her mother's accident, the funeral, the night her aunt first whispered of monsters with golden eyes and people who turned into wolves beneath the moon. Now those whispers had turned into truths. Eliana dropped to her knees in the wet leaves, breathing hard, and then, she screamed. A raw, splintered sound, full of grief and fury. It tore through the forest, echoing off the trees and tumbling into the ravine. When it ended, she was breathless, tears tracking silently down her face. She didn't hear the footsteps until he was already close. Kaz. He didn't speak right away. Just stood a few feet behind her, watching her with those eyes that held too many emotions to name. Finally, he said quietly, I felt it. Eliana didn't look at him. Of course you did, she murmured. We're bonded, remember? That means I don't even get to be mad in peace. There was a pause. She heard the crunch of his boots as he stepped closer, then stopped. I didn't want to betray you, he said. But I did. I know that. She turned to face him, her expression unreadable. Why, Kaz? Why offer them your life like it meant nothing? Why keep doing this, protecting me while pushing me out? His jaw tightened. Because that's all I've ever been taught to do. Protect what matters, even if it costs everything. I'm not asking for a protector, she snapped. I'm asking for a partner. The words hung between them. Then she stood, slowly, brushing the leaves from her jeans. You said the bond was ancient, powerful, but you never told me how it actually feels. He stared at her confused. So I'll tell you what it feels like, she continued. It's like drowning in someone else's heartbeat, like feeling every ache they refuse to admit, every sacrifice they never ask permission to make. She stepped closer. It's like falling in love with a shadow and realizing you're not sure if it's real or if you just want it to be. Kaz's throat worked around words he couldn't quite find. Eliana? She wasn't finished. I know I'm supposed to be strong, special. This bloodline, the hollow, it's waking things in me I don't understand. But I can't carry it if I keep thinking you'll vanish every time it gets hard. I thought I was protecting you, he said. No, you were protecting your fear. That made him flinch. The clouds parted for a moment above them, letting silver moonlight filter through the trees. The forest around them hushed, as if it too was waiting for what would come next. Kuz stepped forward carefully. I've been afraid of the bond since I was a boy. Afraid that it would consume me like it did my father. That I'd lose myself in someone else. Eliana looked at him, trembling. And now, he exhaled slowly. Now I'm more afraid of losing you. The honesty in his voice shattered something in her. She reached up, brushing her fingers across his cheek. Then, stop holding back. Show me. Let me in. He took her hand in his. And then he dropped to his knees, not in surrender but in reverence. In raw, unguarded vulnerability. The wind stilled. The trees leaned closer. Kuz pressed his forehead to the back of her hand and whispered, I love you. Her breath caught. I don't know where I end and you begin anymore, he said. And that terrifies me, but I'll spend the rest of my life learning how to love you without trying to shield you from yourself. Tears welled in her eyes. That's all I wanted. He looked up at her. Even after everything I've done, you didn't betray me, she whispered. You were trying to save me, but now we save each other. She knelt in front of him. Their foreheads touched. The bond pulsed between them, not just in their chests, but in the air, in the soil, in the light. Eliana felt it crack open inside her, something ancient and wild and holy. And then, from somewhere deep in her soul, she whispered, I love you too. Kuz exhaled, broken and grateful. Their lips met not with heat, but with healing. Not as a climax, but as a beginning. This was not a love built on lust or desperation. This was a love earned, slowly, painfully, truthfully. And when they finally pulled apart, the hollow stirred around them. Not with menace but with recognition. The girl who had returned broken was no longer. She was becoming. The hollow's wind had a soul of its own. It carried the scents of pine, ash, and old magic through the trees, curling around Eliana's skin like a memory too ancient to name. She stood at the edge of the ritual clearing, watching the shadows shift between the ancient stones of the circle, her breath soft in the cold. Behind her, the pack gathered in tense silence, shifters in partial form, some with fangs barely tucked behind their lips, others with eyes that glowed faintly amber, watched her every move with suspicion, awe, or barely veiled distrust. The ceremonial fires cast long, flickering shapes across the grass, and the air buzzed with anticipation. Kuz stepped up beside her, his presence like gravity, solid, steady, a weight that grounded her heart even as everything else threatened to spin loose. You don't have to do this tonight, he said softly, without pressure. Eliana glanced at him. I've run my whole life from this place, from who I am, from you. He flinched slightly. She reached for his hand. I'm done running. A rustle from the stone seats above signaled the high elder's approach. Gregor descended into the clearing, robes of dark wool trailing behind him like smoke. His silver-streaked hair gleamed in the moonlight, and his eyes, wolf and man, both pierced through her like glass. Eliana hollow, he said, voice resonating across the circle. You claim the bond with our alpha. Do you understand what that means? I do, she answered. Her voice didn't tremble. He studied her, the firelight casting his deep scars into sharp relief. Then speak. She stepped into the center of the circle. The stones pulsed faintly beneath her boots' living runes, ancient and waiting. I didn't come here looking for this, she said. But the bond found me anyway. Not just the mate bond with cause, but something older, something deeper. A pull from this land, from the hollow itself. Her eyes swept the crowd. I didn't understand it then. I was angry, lost. I thought this place stole my mother from me, that it marked me with pain. But I see now, it was calling me home. A quiet murmur passed among the pack. Cuz stood at the circle's edge, hands clenched at his sides. I've loved Cuz long before I knew what he was, she continued. Before I knew what I was. My soul recognized his before any magic touched us. The bond didn't create our love, it only revealed what was already there. Her words hung in the cold air. Gregor's gaze narrowed. Then show us. A hush fell. Eliana turned to the heartstone, the largest of the ancient monoliths, smooth as river rock and pulsing with subtle energy. She approached slowly, reverently, placing both hands flat on its surface. For a heartbeat nothing then light it burst. From her palms in golden waves, spilling over the ground like wildfire, curling into the sky in thin spirals of energy. The rune beneath her feet lit up first white, then deep amber, then blazing gold. Gasps rose from the crowd. The light enveloped her entirely. Her hair lifted, suspended in a halo. Her eyes flew open, glowing pure gold. Her skin shimmered with magic so old, the trees themselves seemed to lean closer. And then visions, not seen with eyes, but felt in every heart present. A woman bathed in moonlight, whispering healing into a wounded alpha. A girl running through these same woods, laughing her heart whole. A child born beneath an eclipse, cradled in a silver basin, marked with the hollow's crest. And then Kaz, young, fractured, kneeling in the dark woods, hands covered in blood, whispering her name. Even then, the visions faded. Eliana dropped to her knees, the glow dimmed, but she didn't collapse. She rose, slowly, and turned back toward the pack. I don't just accept the bond, she said. I claim it. Kaz stepped forward, eyes wide with and something deeper, something only she could see. Fear. Fear that she wouldn't accept him back. Eliana moved to him, breath shaking. I loved you when we were children. I loved you even when you left. I loved you through the silence, through the lies. And I love you now as my mate, my equal, and my future. He opened his mouth but no words came. So she saved him. Their lips met not urgently, not fiercely, but softly. A kiss that said, I'm here. I see you. I choose you still. Around them, the pack watched in stunned silence. And then, as the bond ignited true and final, a glowing crescent mark burned into the skin beneath both their thumbs. A soul bond. Permanent. Cosmic. A sign not even the elders could dispute. One of the oldest wolves dropped to his knees. Others followed. Gregor gave a long, measured nod. The bond is real, he said. And the hollow accepts her. The fires roared higher as the wind shifted, scattering ash like blessings. Later, in the stillness after the ceremony, Eliana and Kaz walked hand in hand through the trees behind the clearing. The moon was high, stars shivered in the sky. Neither spoke for a long while. At last, Eliana said, You didn't think I'd say it back, did you? Kaz chuckled, a sound rare and warm. No, I thought you'd run. She bumped his arm playfully. I'm still mad you kept so much from me. I'll spend every day making it right. She paused. You already are. They stopped beside the river, the same spot where he first showed her his wolf form. The water reflected the moonlight in trembling lines. He turned to her. I still don't know how to be an alpha. You don't need to, she said. You just need to be you. That's who I chose, not the title. He cupped her face gently. And I chose you. Before the hollow called. Before the magic lit up your skin. When you were just a girl who punched me in the nose for stealing your sandwich. She laughed. You did deserve that. Their laughter melted into quiet. Their foreheads touched. Their breaths mingled. And in that silence, the hollow sighed in peace. To halves. One bond, finally revealed. The night was wrong. Not in the way storms were wrong, violent and loud. No. This night was still. Too still. As if the forest itself was holding its breath. Eliana jolted upright in bed, heart racing. The bond mark on her wrist burned a searing heat that pulsed like a heartbeat not her own. She reached over for Kaz, but the space beside her was empty, cold, sheets undisturbed. "'Cause," she whispered into the darkness. "Nothing." Moonlight spilled through the slats of the cabin window, casting fractured silver across the wooden floor. Shadows bled along the corners longer, darker than they should be. Eliana grabbed her boots and coat, heart thudding, and stepped outside. The woods should have been alive with sound crickets, leaves, maybe a wolf's howl. Instead, silence. No wind. No movement, only the faint smell of smoke. She ran. Branches lashed at her arms as she sprinted through the underbrush, following the pull in her chest, the bond. It guided her like a tether, dragging her towards something she couldn't yet see. Her lungs burned, but she didn't stop, and then she heard it, a distant howl, ragged and urgent, pack wolves. In pain, she broke through the trees and stopped. The northern edge of the hollow was in flames. Orange fire licked up ancient trees, and smoke clawed at the night sky. Dozens of wolves, some mid-shift, others collapsed, lay scattered across the forest floor. Some groaned, others were deathly still. Magical residue crackled in the air like static. At the center of it all stood Kaz, bloodied and panting, facing down something that turned Eliana's stomach to ice. 3 hybrids, twisted, hulking things, half man, half beast, all wrong. Their eyes glowed like molten gold, and their limbs twitched unnaturally, like marionettes being yanked by an unseen force. And beyond them stood a man in black armor streaked with silver, Roan. Her pulse stuttered. She'd only heard whispers of a once alpha who tried to rewrite pack laws through dark magic, who sacrificed his own fated mate for power, who was thought dead years ago in a ritual gone wrong. But he was very much alive, and smiling. Well, Roan drawled, his voice smooth and cold. The prodigal daughter arrives. Right on time. Kaz's head snapped up. Eliana, run. One of the hybrids lunged toward her. She dove to the side just in time. The creature's claws missed her face by inches, gouging the earth behind her. She scrambled to her feet, drew the rune dagger from her boot, the one her mother once gave. Her end whispered a single word of power. The blade shimmered with golden light. The hybrid charged again, but this time Eliana didn't retreat. She ducked low and drove the blade into its chest. A burst of golden energy exploded outward. The creature convulsed, then crumbled into ash. The other turned toward her, enraged. Roan narrowed his eyes. Interesting. She has the hollows. Blood. Kuz stepped between her and the next charging hybrid, half shifted, claws gleaming. He met the beast midair, slashing its throat in a spray of black ichor. He hit the ground running, driving his knee into its side and snapping its neck with one brutal twist. The final hybrid circled Eliana. She turned slowly, keeping the dagger raised, but her breath came in fast, panicked bursts. Then her mark flared. Power surged up from the earth-rooted, ancient, alive. Vines erupted from the soil, wrapping the hybrid's legs. The stones beneath her feet pulsed with runes she didn't recognize, and her voice, somehow not her own, spoke an incantation in a language that made the trees tremble. The creature shrieked as golden fire consumed it from the inside. Eliana fell to her knees, shaking. Kuz reached for her, but a blast of black magic hurled him backward. Roan stepped into the clearing, eyes glowing with corrupted power. Well done, he said. To Eliana, I was going to kill you, but now I think I'll use you. He raised one hand, forming a vortex of black smoke that twisted like a snake. Kuz forced himself up, blood running down his temple. You won't touch her. Roan laughed. You couldn't stop me then. You certainly won't now. You didn't kill her mother alone, Kuz growled. You needed a child's hands to complete your ritual. My hands? Eliana's stomach dropped. What? Kuz turned to her, agony in his eyes. I didn't know. Not until it was too late. I was 13. Roan used me to channel her magic, your mother's magic. I thought I was helping her. I didn't know he meant to kill her. You lied to me? Her voice trembled. All this time? I thought telling you would destroy you. No, she whispered. It would have set me free. Roan grinned. And just like that, you fracture. Eliana's hands trembled. Her bond mark burned. Her magic spiraled out of control. Kuz stepped forward, chest heaving. If you want power, Roan, take mine. Let her go. You'd die for her? Roan sneered. I already killed for her, Kuz said. Now I'm ready to die. Roan struck magic lancing toward Kaz like a spear, but Eliana screamed, not in fear but in defiance. Her bond mark flared white hot. A wall of golden energy erupted between Kaz and Roan's spell, shattering it midair. The ground cracked. Trees bent backward. The power in her blood reached its peak, fully awakened. I don't need saving, Eliana whispered. I am the hollow. She lifted her palm and Roan's body began to dissolve. No, no. He shrieked as the light consumed him. A final explosion lit the night and then, silence. Ash settled like snow. The fire died. The forest exhaled. Cuz fell to his knees. His head hung low, breath ragged. Eliana didn't run to him. Not yet. The distance between them wasn't space, it was memory. She stepped closer, slowly, carefully. You lied to protect me, she said. But you also robbed me of the truth. I know. You were a child, she continued. But I still needed to hear it from you, not him. He looked up, shame carved into every line of his face. I failed your mother. I failed you. No, she said softly. You tried, and that matters. She knelt in front of him, took his hands, and placed his palm to her heart. I don't forgive you tonight, she whispered. I know, but I still love you. His breath hitched. I'll wait, he said, for however long it takes. She nodded, and together, they sat beneath the quiet trees, wounded, shaken, but whole. The hollow mourned in silence. The night after Roan's destruction was heavy not with fear, but with memory. Smoke clung to the trees like old secrets, and ash blanketed the roots where wolves had bled, fought, and died. The cleansing was done, but the scars remained. Eliana sat alone atop the stone altar where Roan had fallen. The moon hovered low, swollen, and watchful. Its silver light spilled over her like a shroud, illuminating the dried blood on her hands, the dirt under her fingernails, and the fading burn of her bond mark. She had slept for barely an hour into days, not because she couldn't but because she shouldn't. The pack had lost more than warriors. They had lost innocence, unity, trust, and in the heart of it all, she had found a new kind of silence inside herself, not empty, but vast, like standing at the edge of a cliff and realizing the wind might carry you instead of break you. You didn't come to bed again, said a low voice behind her. Cuz she didn't turn right away, just stared out at the woods where the last embers still glowed in the soil. I couldn't sleep, she said softly. There's too much left in the air. He moved beside her, slow, as if unsure whether he was still allowed close. I can feel it too, he said. In the roots, the stones, even the fire doesn't crackle the same way. Eliana looked at him, eyes tired but alert. It's not just the land, it's us. Cuz met her gaze. I know. He sat beside her, close but not touching. The silence stretched again, gentle, fragile. You said something before the fight, Eliana whispered. That Roan used you in the ritual that killed my mother. He nodded, pain darkening his features. I need to understand, she said. Not just what happened, but why you never told me. Cuz looked down at his hands, scarred, calloused, trembling. When I was a boy, I thought strength meant never being afraid. Roan was bigger than life. He knew the old magics. He made me feel important, like I could protect people, like I mattered. Eliana listened, quiet, open. He told me, your mother was sick, that she needed the ritual to survive, that I could help, Cuz continued. And I did what he asked. I repeated his chants. I marked the runes with my own blood. I believed I was saving her. He swallowed hard. But when the ritual finished, she fell, just fell, and I knew. His voice cracked. I ran all night. When the others found me, I couldn't speak. I didn't speak for days. Eliana closed her eyes, the ache in her chest sharp and real. I spent years trying to forget. Then I saw you in the village last year, and it all came back. Her smile in your eyes, her fire in your voice. He reached into his coat and pulled something out, a worn ribbon, faded crimson. Eliana gasped. That's your mother gave it to me the day before she died, he said. Said it would protect me. I kept it. I couldn't wear it, but I kept it. Eliana took the ribbon in trembling hands. It was small, simple, but it held the weight of years between them. She didn't speak for a long time. Then I don't forgive you, she whispered. But I don't hate you either. He nodded, slowly. That's fair. I need time, Cuz. He turned to her. You can have it, as much as you need. They sat in silence again. But this time, it wasn't broken. It simply was. A breeze stirred the trees. Somewhere, an owl cried out. And then footsteps, not urgent, not hostile, but firm. Gregor, the High Elder, stepped into the clearing, his robe heavy with ash and magic. Eliana, he said. It's time. She stood. Time for what? For the reckoning. Cuz stiffened. She's done enough. She must stand before the circle. Gregor interrupted. Not as a criminal, but as a heir. Eliana's brows furrowed. Heir? Gregor nodded. You carry the Hollow's oldest blood. The bond mark proved it, but your actions, the control you wielded, the vines, the invocation, that was something older. The Hollow has not chosen a true bloodkeeper in 2 generations. She glanced down at her hands. I didn't know what I was doing. Exactly, Gregor said. Which is why you must learn, must be witnessed, must be accepted. And if I'm not, then the pack loses its future. The circle of elders stood beneath the ancient moon, gathered in a ring of ironwood, staves and burning coals. Dozens of wolves' pack warriors, healers, younglings lined the perimeter in solemn silence. Eliana stepped into the center, her boots sinking slightly into the mossy ground. Cuz stood behind her, watching, waiting. Gregor raised his staff. Speak your name and lineage. Eliana Hollow, she said. Daughter of May Hollow, granddaughter of the first moon-blooded. Gasps whispered through the crowd. Gregor's eyes gleamed. Do you claim the title of keeper? Eliana hesitated. Then no, silence. She turned slowly, facing everyone. I don't claim anything. Not yet. I don't even know what it means. But I will learn. I will not carry power blindly. I will not lead from wounds I haven't healed. She turned to Gregor. If the Hollow wants me, it must teach me. A beat of silence. Then Gregor smiled, a small, rare smile. Well said. He raised his staff high. By the rights of the old tongue, let it be recorded. The Hollow accepts Eliana, not as heir, not as savior, but as student. The fires blazed higher, wolves held high and rising. The bond mark on her wrist pulsed but gently this time, and cause. He exhaled for the first time in days. She glanced back at him, met his eyes, still here, still waiting, still hers. In time. The snow came early that year. Soft flakes drifted through the trees like feathers, settling quietly on the thick evergreens that lined the Hollow's western ridge. The forest looked like something out of a painting, muted and peaceful, wrapped in winter's hush. Eliana stood at the edge of the cliff that overlooked the valley. From here, she could see everything: the frozen lake to the east, the silver rooftops of the pack houses below, and beyond them, the untouched wild where old spirits were said to still walk under the moon. It had been 2 weeks since the reckoning, since she stood before the elders and chose to learn rather than lead, since she and Cuz last spoke more than a few quiet words. The space between them hadn't closed, but it had shifted. It no longer felt like a wound, just healing skin. Behind her, footsteps approached and hurried. Careful, she didn't turn. I figured I'd find you here, Cuz said gently. You always come to this ridge when it snows. She smiled faintly. It's the only place where the world feels like it's breathing again. He stepped beside her, close but not touching, always aware, always giving her space. You look tired, she said, glancing sideways. Cuz let out a low chuckle. Hard to sleep when half the pack still jumps at shadows. Not your fault, she murmured. They're learning how to trust again. They trust you, he said. You gave them something I never could. She turned fully then, watching his face. He looked older now, more than just the stubble or the dark circles under his eyes. It was something deeper, like the weight he carried had finally settled, no longer floating above him like a storm waiting to break. They trusted us, she said softly, because we didn't pretend to be perfect. Cuz met her gaze. His eyes, usually steel-hard and unreadable, were open now, clear. There was no armor left between them. I still love you, he said. I don't say it to change your mind, or to erase what happened. I say it because it's true, and I'll keep saying it whether you ever say it back or not. Eliana didn't answer. Instead, she reached into her coat pocket and held something out, the crimson ribbon, worn, faded, still hers. Cuz looked at it confused. I want you to wear it, she said. Not as a memory, as a promise. A promise. Of what? She stepped closer. That we don't have to be perfect, she whispered. That we don't erase the past, but we don't let it dictate the future either. Slowly, she tied the ribbon around his wrist. His pulse fluttered beneath her fingers. When she finished, she didn't move away. Cause, yeah, I still love you too, she said. He inhaled sharply, like he hadn't dared to hope. Then very gently he took her face in his hands and kissed her. Not a wild kiss, not desperate, but steady, warm, real. The kind of kiss that didn't beg for forgiveness but offered peace. When they pulled apart, the snow had thickened, spinning lazily around them like stars. I'm staying, she said, in the Hollow, as student, as pack, and as mate. She smiled. In time, that evening, the hollow gathered beneath the moon. It wasn't a ceremony, not really, no ancient rites, no blood rune chants. Just a fire in the center of the clearing, stories being passed around, children tumbling in the snow, and a table of warm stew that smelled like rosemary and pine. Eliana sat between Gregor and one of the young healers, Mira, who had started calling her Moonblood with a teasing grin. She laughed more freely now. Even her eyes, once guarded, had softened. Cuz stood across the fire, speaking quietly with a group of warriors, and though they didn't sit together, their eyes met often, across the flames, across the music, across the pieces of a future still forming. Halfway through the gathering, Gregor rose and tapped his staff against the stone. Tonight, he said, we do not celebrate victory. We celebrate endurance. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. We remember what was lost, but we honor what was found. A healer born of blood, an alpha remade in humility, a bond forged not in fate but in choice. He looked directly at Eliana. May the hollow be reborn through those brave enough to choose truth. And the pack howled, not in grief, not in rage, but in belonging. Eliana felt it deep in her chest, the resonance of something ancient and sacred. This was home now, not because it had claimed her, but because she had claimed herself. Later, as the fire died down and most of the pack wandered back to their dens, Eliana remained. She sat on the old log that had served as a bench for generations, watching the embers glow, listening to the wind in the trees. Cuz returned and sat beside her, holding 2 steaming mugs of pine tea. She took one, fingers brushing his. Neither spoke for a while. Then quietly he asked, do you think we'll ever be the same? She sipped her tea. No, and I don't want to be. He looked at her. She smiled. We're not broken. We're changed. That's not the same thing. Cuz nodded slowly. Then I'll change with you, every day. And finally, Eliana leaned her head against his shoulder. The wind howled gently overhead, not in warning, but in blessing. The hollow watched, and was still, and somewhere, deep in the roots of the earth, something ancient sighed in contentment. Not all love was born from fate. Some love was earned, and those were the ones that lasted.